I just got done with an incredible week last week in which I was coaching. I was meeting new clients that I'll be coaching coming up this spring. I had a big presentation, a 2-day presentation with a lumber company, and then had some coaching yesterday. Now, why do I bring all that up? Because there was a theme, and I want to get into that theme today, which is how can we shed the Minnesota nice and the passiveness and be more assertive? And then what will we gain when we be more assertive? What will other people gain from us? And what will we gain selfishly when we are more clear and we are more assertive as we lead other people? And remember, you are leading other people whether you have a title of leader or not. And so today we're going to talk about how can we change some of our passive phrases and move them more into an assertive way so that people are confident in taking action and they know exactly what you are looking for. Now, when I first started creating speaking presentations, I was focused on the culture for everyone else to thrive in, right? I originally started this as an educator, and I was thinking to myself, how can I help teachers make classroom cultures where students can thrive? However, that's not always what I want, because sometimes when the students are thriving, the teachers are in survival mode, right? And so I changed the title of my presentations, and now I almost always go with creating cultures where you and others thrive. And now, why do I bring that up? There was a dynamite article on a Boise State University website all about passive, assertive, aggressive behavior and conversations. And in there, it gave the definition of assertive, and it said acting in a way where you and others feel respected. And so I want to talk a little bit about this article and what I gained from it. All right, so you know me, and I like to get definitions from the internet so that I am bringing you the best of material. And when I found these definitions, I was super excited. All right, so a few of the definitions that I found on this Boise State Pressbooks article. And by the way, I got to tell you, the title at the top is Making Conflict Suck Less, the Basics, which I just really appreciate. Okay, so the definition, we'll start with assertive because I already kind of hinted at it. It means that you use a communication style in which you stand up for your rights while maintaining respect for the rights of others. Now, that is what I am always preaching, and that is what I feel like a lot of my training leans on, is how can we be respectful to others while also being respectful for what we need and for what we want and for what we are creating. Now, let's talk about passive. Raise your hand if you feel like you fall in the passive category. Now, here is the definition: a communication style in which you put the rights of others before your own, typically minimizing your own self-worth. Now, some of you might have heard that and you're like, no, Anne, I don't always put the rights of others before my own, and I definitely don't minimize my self-worth. But when you think about it, if you are using phrases like, hey, any chance you would have time to, you are putting others in front of yourself. Or if you say things like, hey, just wondering if you could help with, you are putting others and their time or their talents ahead of your own, right? And so today we're going to talk about how we can get away from that passive conversation style and move more towards into assertive. Now, I am not going to talk much about aggressive communication. And here's why. I just don't believe many of you are struggling with that. I don't think many of you listening to this podcast are using aggressive communication styles. And here's why I say that. Because when I am out doing presentations, when I am working with leaders, when I am engaging with managers and people who are building others up, they're typically not utilizing the aggressive communication style. They're trying so hard to be nice and to be kind, and it's actually coming off as passive instead of definitely not coming off as aggressive and not coming off as assertive. So I might make a few comments here and there. If you are in the aggressive category and you want to get away from it, you need to hit me up. So send me an email, impact@anvote.com, and we can have a one-on-one conversation about how to take some of your aggressive tendencies and really peel back how to be more assertive. But this episode is for those passive pals out there who are really, really, really wanting to get their voice heard and really wanting to be assertive, but feeling like they just don't have the skills to do that. We're going to give you some language to use today to really get yourself and other people confidently taking action. Now, really quickly, aggressive definition is that it is a communication style in which you stand up for your rights, but you violate the rights of others. So, like I said, we're not even going to go there today because I believe so many of you fall in the either passive or assertive category. Now, let's take another little look at these three continuums or these three behavior patterns. If you tend to be passive, you are typically apologetic and you sound very tentative when you speak. So it might sound something like, I'm so sorry to bother you, right? Or correct me if I'm wrong. And you come kind of forward with this passive tone and this hesitation in your communication. Also, passive people tend not to speak up when they are wronged. Think about that. We are out in the world, we are engaging with other people, and people might be wronging us, and we are not speaking up because we want to take the passive approach. Now, how many of us, when we were young, right? I know that the majority of my listeners are millennials because analysis tells me that of my podcast listeners. And as millennials, we were told, like, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it, right? Or we were told not to engage in conflict. And so we need to really sharpen our assertive skills so that we can thrive and so can the people around us. Now, assertive communicators, like I said, we respect our own rights and the rights of others. This person tends to be more direct, but not insulting and not offensive. And what I love about this is that you are willing to stand up for your own rights, but make sure that other people's rights aren't being negatively impacted at the same time. Now, maybe some of you know some aggressive communicators and you were thinking to yourself, man, I kind of want to hear about that because I think my boss is an aggressive communicator. And that might be the case. They are consistently standing up for themselves and their own rights and not worried about others. They tend to communicate in a way that tells others that the other person doesn't matter and their feelings don't matter. Your feelings are not important. If you are assertive, you are saying my feelings are important as well as yours. And if you are passive, the other person's feelings are more important than the person communicating. So we want to move you from the passive continuum over into the assertive continuum because all of us have voices that matter. We all have needs that matter. We all have rights that matter. And so acting in a way that positions ourselves as important as well as the other person is going to be fundamental in order to communicate well and lead other people. Let's walk through some examples of phrases you might be using, and I'm going to give you a strategy to turn what you are trying to say or what you are trying to ask into an assertive request. All right. So first up is any chance. Any chance you could look over this final draft. Any chance you could help me with laundry. Any chance you'd like to work on the final edits on this project. Any chance opens it up as they have all the power to say yes or no, or to do things on their own timeline. which I know some of you right now are listening to this. And it is respectful to allow other people to react or engage in a way that's best for them. And I hear you. But what any chance does is it says, I am not on the timeline. I am not important. I am simply asking for when this works for you, and I'm only focused on you and your needs. Now, if you are at work, you need to be focused on productivity and efficiency. And yes, you need to be thoughtful of other people, but isn't it thoughtful to be direct and be clear with another person? It is respectful to speak to them in a way that helps them be clear in what you are asking so that they can be confident in taking action. And so I want to, oh, excuse me. I want to share with you a phrase, or sorry, a strategy that can help you be more assertive. And it's going to be called reason and request. Reason and request. Here's what it is. You're going to give a reason for a request. So let's use any chance you could look over this final draft. Any chance you could look over this final draft. Before we go into our boss's office, our teammate's office, whatever it is, to ask this question, we're going to stop and we're going to say, okay, what's my reason for this request? In order for this request to be accurate, that might be the reason for the request. In order for me to submit this final draft, right, we need their approval, or we need them to look it over. So now we're going to give our reason. We're going to walk into this person's office. We're going to say, in order for me to publish this final draft, I would love it if you could take a look at it to make sure that it is up to your standards, or it is up to company standards, or that you believe it is accurate and ready to go, whatever it is, right? Reason, in order for me to submit this, I need someone to look it over. Now, we need to be ready for the person we are asking to say, I don't have time to do that today. So then can we go to someone else? Or can we ask them to do it right away tomorrow morning? Now we're in a conversation. We've given a reason why we need them to look this over and a request. Can you look this over today? Now let's go back to the other one. Any chance you could look over this final draft? Someone might say to you, yeah, I can put it down on my desk. We did not give them time. We did not give them when it was due. We simply set it down. This is why reason and request needs to be clear. In order for me to submit this final draft, I need an extra pair of eyes to just double check that it is accurate. Would you have time to do that by 3 p.m. today? This is assertive, but it is also respectful to the other person because you're giving it a time deadline. You're saying why it's important, and you're being clear and direct. All right, let me give you another phrase. Another phrase I had was, when you get a moment. When you get a moment, could you reply to the email I just? When you get a moment. Again, we are giving up all power for our needs and putting it in the hands of the other individual. Now, some of you might be thinking, yeah, it's a really respectful thing to ask because maybe I don't have a timeline. Maybe I don't need it right away. That's okay. Give them some sort of timeline so that they can be clear on when you want this done. Because honestly, if you could see my desk right now, it is a total mess. And if Brian walked in here and said, hey, when you get a moment, can you look over our tax information? I'm going to be like, sure, just set it right there. 2 seconds later, I'm probably going to set something on top of that that's not as important. And then I'm going to be looking at that unimportant thing, not realizing that what is important is underneath that. And so giving a deadline, being clear on what you want and why you need it, right? Reason and request. So Brian walks in and says, hey, we have our tax appointment next Wednesday. Can you look over our tax paperwork to make sure, double check that it is accurate, right? So now he's giving me a deadline of it is next Wednesday. And then knowing my husband, he's going to be like, where should I put this so you see it and remember it? And that is assertive because it's important for him that it gets done and it's important for me that it gets done. And he's aware that when I set things down, I have a tendency of overlooking whatever it is on top of it, right? And so let's be really clear. So instead of when you get a moment, can you reply to this email? You could walk into an office or run into them in the hallway or whatever it is, and you simply say, I just sent you an email. And if you could reply to that by Friday, I'm going to be able to move forward on whatever you're asking of them, right? So now we're getting extremely clear. Somebody might be like, oh, I just saw that come through. You need a response today. I can do that right now. That'd be great. Then I don't have to bother you later this week. Excellent. And we get moving. Being clear and direct, giving deadlines, giving exactly what you need from them. I need you to reply, right? Instead of, hey, can you look over, when you get a moment, can you look over this email? They might have looked over the email and been like, that looks good, but not replied, not sent it back to you. Or said, oh, I'll tell her when I'm leaving the office today, and they completely forget because of all the other things that happen, right? We are going to be direct. Another one, I'm going to use this as an example with a spouse, which could definitely be used at work too, but do you think you could? Do you think you could? Opens up the door to me, if I'm being communicated with, to say, no, I don't think I can, right? And so make sure that if you're asking me to do something that you need me to do, we are rewording that with reason and request. So for example, my schedule is very different, right? Because I'm a presenter, I'm not always busy. And because of my coaching hours, sometimes I can pick up the kids, drop them off at school, all the things, and other times I can't. And so I used to ask my husband, hey, do you think you could pick up the kids this Wednesday? Now, to be fair, I have a backup, right? My parents live nearby. I could ask them. However, asking, do you think you could, insinuates that I have all these other options and they are going to take me more time. And so I started using different asking with reason and request. And so I would say things like, this Wednesday and Thursday, I'm in Minneapolis for an event. Is it going to work for you to pick up the kids? I am still giving him an option to say, no, it doesn't work for me because this is busy. Or yes, it works for me. I can get them, right? But I'm asking in a way that's giving him a reason and then request. Can you pick up the kids? And typically he's like, yep, I can make that work because he knows the reason. Now, if I were simply to say, hey, next Friday, do you think you could pick up the kids? I can tell you right now, he will ask, what's going on? Or, what's the reason that you need this? Because we are conditioned now to give reason and request at the same time. And so it's good. It's assertive. It's sharing what you need, but also in a way that's very direct. So the person can give you a solid answer on the spot. And that's what we want to do. The last thing I want to talk about came up yesterday. So I have a new round of coaching clients on Mondays from the same company that I coached back in the fall. And we were going through the very first set of training. And so that first coaching call is always a 30-minute training added on with 30 minutes of practice of skill. So we were going through this skill, and one of my clients said, hey, Ann, sometimes I don't want to call people out for what they're doing. And instead, I kind of use like a different excuse that would get them to change their behavior. So for example, I see two people standing in an area during work time and they are just chit-chatting. And I will walk up and I will say, hey, in order for Ann to get her work done, Jason, I'm going to need you to go back to your workstation, right? And he said, what do you think about that? And I right away thought, that's fine. That's a very kind way to approach it. But if you don't want Jason in Ann's work area anymore, you need to be more direct, because when we're passive, it opens it up to multiple perspectives. When we are assertive, we are very clear in what we expect going forward. And so walking up to those two people where Jason is in Ann's work area and they're just chatting about March Madness, that is unhelpful for productivity and efficiency, right? And so instead, I was helping him say reason and request, which is, we need to stay productive. And I see that you're outside of your work area. I'm going to ask that you head back to your workstation and you two can catch up at lunch, right? So this is a very direct ask. I see or I notice, right? If you phrases that work, I think this was the second or third phrase that work, saying I noticed, and you're out of your work area. That is a fact. I cannot argue with that. That is not, I can't misconstrue that. That's true. Anne is outside her work area. So we are being very clear and very direct. And then, so that's my reason for coming up to talk to you. And then my request. I'm going to need you to go back to your work area and be productive, right? That is a very clear request. That is how we get assertive. The same can go with your kids. So we might know that they're tired or know that they're hungry and give them a scapegoat for some of their behavior instead of calling it like it is, right? And so let's be more assertive. Use the words that are going to create action and get really, really clear. If nothing else, here's what this does for you. When you approach situations assertively, it opens the door to clear communication back to you. But if we are being passive, there's a tendency for other people to respond in a passive way as well. And that's not what we want for ourselves either. And so when you model being assertive, you are going to see it come back from others at the same time, which is exactly what we want. That's what we want, right? We want people modeling back to us what we are modeling to them. And what if it works? What if you start changing up your language just a little bit to get a little more clear, a little more concise, a little more direct? And now when people are asking you questions, when people are approaching you with requests, they are giving you their reason and their direct request, right? What is that going to do for you? This is going to open up so much more time that we waste when we are hiding in the gray area. And so get clear, set other people up for success, be open to them being direct to you as well. And some of us might be uncomfortable with that. I actually was a camp counselor, and as a camp counselor, I was also the assistant program director at a summer camp out in New Hampshire. And while I was there, I actually had the kind of the coordinator of all the staff come speak to me, and she said, "Hey, Anne, here's the deal. You are so assertive." And I was just like, I was beaming because that is such a compliment. And she said, "But some of the staff members you work with are not used to that. And they are very passive. And they want you to communicate with them in a less assertive way." And she said, "I'm so sorry to share this to you in this way because I love how assertive you are. You're very direct, you're very clear, but maybe adding a few pleasantries in there at the same time would help them warm up to your assertiveness." And I will tell you that I grew from that advice. And that was simply like, I would be sending emails saying, "Hey, Jennifer, I'm going to need you to take your kids to this field this afternoon now instead of being on this court because we had to move the art room to the outdoor location." Done. That's all I was saying. And some people were reading into, especially emails, right, that was too direct. And so she was simply adding like, "Hey, Jennifer, hope you're having a great day. We had a few things come up and we had to shift the art class to outside. Because of this, I'm hoping you will be willing to do da, da, da." So I was still asking and being direct with what I needed from people, but I was adding a little bit of a cushion. And now that is up to you to add that or not. But I will tell you, I definitely grew through that experience of being told sometimes your assertiveness, when read through an email, can come off in a way that you do not want. And so adding some of that cushion was helpful in that type of work environment, right? I also used to be a teacher that's very similar to camp. You have a lot of people who are very emotionally charged by what they do. And when people are emotionally connected to the work that they do, they want to be treated in a way that is respecting that work that they are putting in. And so being respectful of that and adding a little bit of cushion did go a long way. And still to this day, I will type an email with a response in seconds. I'll be like, yep, I can do that. I'll have it done by noon. Could you send me da, 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 da. And then I literally get done and I go back up to the top. I add the name, I add a quick comment. Maybe it's something like, thank you so much for doing XYZ. Then I put in what I need from them. And then I tell them, thank you and have a great weekend, or enjoy the sunshine, or I hope, you enjoy the snowfall this weekend, or whatever it is, just to kind of add some cushion and personality to my requests on email. Now, some of you work in a very direct way and you do not have time for those pleasantries, and that is okay. But what I want to tell you is, what if this works? What if you start utilizing this and you see people utilizing it, not just back to you, but with other employees as well? This is a way for you to grow your skills while modeling it for others. And if you are a parent, I want you to start utilizing this every single day. Reason and request. You want your son to pick up the socks that he put underneath the dining room table because he took them off when he sat down to eat? Great. Reason and request. If you want your kids to start getting ready because it's almost time to go, reason and request. Simply saying something like, hey guys, it's 7:35 on the clock. That means I need you to brush your teeth so we can have our shoes on and be out the door. Right? Correct. Giving exactly what we need, reason and request. I want to know if you use this. Please fill me in, send me a message. You can hit me up on Instagram at AnnVote, that's ANNVOTE. You can send me a message on my Facebook page, Impact to Influence, or you can shoot me an email always at any time, impact@annvote.com. Reason and request. Let's see if it starts to change the game for you and change the behavior and reactions of others, because that is what I am here for. Help you create an environment that other people are taking action confidently, where they feel valued and trusted because of who you are as a leader. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for being here. This was episode 35 of the What If It Works podcast. And if you are a podcast listener, go over to your favorite platform and make sure you subscribe to the What If It Works platform podcast on your favorite platform. Also, if there are people in your lives that they are feeling stuck, or they want to sharpen their communication skills and their leadership skills, please send them this video, or you can share other episodes from the podcast as well. If you are looking for where to find me, you can head on over to the Impact to Influence Facebook page, or you can meet me over on Instagram at AnnVote. That's at ANNVOTE. Thank you so much for watching. Just remember, what if it works? You are the captain of your culture, and your actions make a difference. But you got to take those actions for you to see a change.